Everyone, thank you so much for being here tonight to talk about this incredible film, to take it in this amazing theater. My name is Katie Walsh. I'm a film critic for the Tribune News Service and the LA Times, and I'm so thrilled to be here tonight to talk to two of the forces behind this film. So please welcome star Demi Moore. Hello, thank you both for being here tonight. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. It's such an experience. It's such an experience to see it in a huge theater with a crowd. So y'all are so lucky to have experienced the film this way. Coralie, just to start at the beginning, your first film, Revenge, was this incredible take on a rape revenge film and action thriller genre, taking on rape culture, misogyny, patriarchy, and then you take on the beauty industry, patriarchy, Hollywood, media in this film. So what was the genesis of the idea for this script?
Well, first of all, hi everyone. It's incredible to see this packed room. Thank you for the question. I think, yes, the two films can really be seen pretty linked one to another, even if they deal with very different subjects. In Revenge, it was more the external violence that was, going on the character, and the substance is more about how we get to breed our own internal violence with everything that we have to face around. And I think that the idea of the movie comes from, I think, since I'm a kid, since I'm a little girl, where I think I've been strongly influenced in my relationship with the outside world, depending on what expectations were, being put on me about how you have to be or how you are supposed to be when you're a girl, what you're supposed to look like, how you're supposed to behave, what place in the world you can or cannot have. And I think it has influenced my whole life. And I think at every different age, it kind of created a very hatred relationship with myself about the sensation not to be good enough, and that there is always extreme hyper-vigilance about how you're going to be seen, if you're going to do something that is going to be judged, or and for the substance, I started to write the movie when I had passed my 40s and I was going toward my 50s. And I really started to have those crazy thoughts that, okay, now it's done, like my life is going to be over, I'm not going to be interesting for anyone anymore, and I agree, those thoughts are crazy, but they were very real. And I think like it's because of everything around me since, I grew up, that makes me feel that past a certain age, or if you don't look like a certain way, society is not going to value you, and you're not going to have a space and a place anymore. So I decided I needed to do something about those thoughts, otherwise they were going to crush me. So that's how it came to life.
To me, when you received this script, what was there like a specific scene or moment where you said, yes, I have to do this, or that terrified you or really intrigued you about this
All of
project?
the above. I think first of all, it was presented with, I don't want to say, my agent said, I don't want to tell you anything about this, I think you just need to read it and then we'll talk. And so I think one thing is it's a spectacular and unique way of exploring this issue. The places that it obviously goes. But I read a lot of scripts, and it's very rare that you turn the page and you're continually surprised, where you don't know where it's going to go, you don't know what the next turn is. And to Coralie's point of what anchored this, for me, what resonated so deeply was that exploration of the violence that we can have against ourselves, the way that we can judge ourselves so harshly. And, you know, it can expand. I mean, the film is obviously centered around our body and and how we look, but I feel like it was such a relatable human feeling, this idea of, you know, we can judge, are we smart enough, are we good enough in every area of our life, and I just was super, super taken.
Coralie, what's interesting about both this film and Revenge is like, there's not a lot of dialogue. It's very much the character kind of on their own, either interacting with themselves or defining themselves through their actions, how they interact with other people, but also their relationship with them on their own. So much of this is, you know, Elizabeth alone in her home or interacting with herself like in the mirror. So what is your writing process like when it comes to that? And for Demi, like to follow up, what's it like to just be acting with yourself? Hard?
I'll let you go first.
Yes, to me the fact that in both my movies there are very little dialogue is really, I think, my way of expressing myself, which is not through a lot of words, but rather with building, with image and sound, an experience that it's gonna share a lot of immersive and visceral experience, together with a very symbolical way of telling my stories. When I start to write, in fact, I first, before even I write anything, I just have the idea and I start to research a lot of images, a lot of music and sound, a lot of color palette, because I know that they're going to be the main elements that really going to build the way I'm going to share the story. And in fact, from the beginning, I really write the scenes in a very detailed way, where it's true that I want that, you know, when the actors are going to read or the people I'm going to have to convince to do the movie are going to read, I want them to feel and try to be as close as possible as what I want to be on the screen at the end. And so it takes me in a very, very detailed way also because I edit to try and give the pacing, because especially when you don't have dialogue, each scene brings to the next one and brings to the next mental space of the character that is building towards more and more craziness. And I do believe that if you want to bring the audience towards craziness, it has to be very controlled in the way you get there, because in the end, it's always going to be related to the character experience and the way, you know, the performance are going to bring the audience to still root with them even when they end up as a blob on the on the pavement. And in fact, like the very first scene I remember that I wrote, I think is even before I had the full stories or who my character was going to be, is the birth sequence when Elizabeth takes the drug and Sue is born out of her back. And I wrote it in exactly what you see on screen, very detailed way, with all the sound, all the framings, everything that was going to create that experience. And I think it kind of gave the rule of the film, which was going to be told by what the character is going to share with us on screen, facing herself, and everything around in the location, in the pacing, in the sound, that I remember we discussed from the very start as building the experience of what Elizabeth is gonna live. And I think it's to be specific at that moment from the script is the way to really build very precisely the the world of the film and the escalation, and then that the actors are going to put them to life with their own emotion and their own living heart. So yeah, that's really the core of it.
So for you, the shooting experience, I mean, you're often alone, but you're also often with Margaret Qualley, who plays Sue. But what was it like? I mean, so
But
much.
I wasn't with her when she was conscious.
Right.
What was it?
Very,
So it was like being alone, except with a naked body on top of me. No, but it was a very unusual experience. It really, you know, when you don't have another actor generally to feed off of, and when you have, as I did, many of those scenes that were either in the mirror, and a big part of that for me is knowing that, you know, from what Coralie had shared, the visual, you know, design that she had as part of the storytelling, that, you know, I felt my job was to really anchor into creating Elizabeth, and so that at every moment that I could feel that not just that I knew her, that she could be alive, because so much of it had to be in nuances that where you don't have that other person to kind of move you to one place or another. And I think it was just really about kind of having complete abandon, really going in and just allowing what that experience is when we're alone. Like the thoughts that we have that are very non-linear, that aren't necessarily about any one thing, that really can consume us. As in the obsession, a big part of like seeing the reflection for me was a lot about feeding into Elizabeth's obsession.
Well, so much of your performance, I think, is in the eyes, and so much of this is about how she looks at herself, and about the camera's gaze, and that relationship of the camera's gaze on, like, perhaps the Sue body versus the Elizabeth's gaze on herself, which I think is really interesting, and I think your performance is really lovely. And it's kind of the last thing we see of Elizabeth, too, is her eyes looking up. So Coralie was speaking about sound, the color, the editing. What was your reaction to seeing the film for the first time? What was that like? Did you have any idea of like what the sensation, the cinematic sensation was going to be?
Well, first of all, I had seen a version of it, but not the completed version. I saw the very first time in Cannes at a 2,000-person screening. You know, we were late getting started because the film before us, I was kind of worried that people were going to be a little bit like, oh, we're the late show. And it was kind of beyond. I think there's no way to fully describe how the response. I mean, I can tell you, Margaret was sitting like a couple of seats down because I really didn't know. I mean, it's one thing on paper, it's another to go, are people gonna get this? Is this gonna translate? What, and we just kept looking at each other like, yeah, they're with it. And I think, you know, the laughter, it's really been very humbling overall. But I would say though, watching it for the first time, the scene that absolutely was overwhelming was Dennis Quaid eating the shrimp. Because it was the first time I was hearing the sound on top of the squishing and the juice. Yeah. And
so even shooting it, you didn't realize it was going to be
that was gross too. It was probably, as Coralie's heard me say before, for me it's the most violent scene in the movie. I think he loved it. He sat there and ate 4 pounds. 4 pounds, just with the same enthusiasm and zeal of biting those heads off and tossing it away. It was a deep, you know, gut-wrenching metaphor.
Coralie, what was it like for you at Cannes to watch it with 2,000 people? I mean, I'm sure you've seen it a million times from editing and all of that, but you know, just to finally have that many people take it in and react to it.
Well, in fact, it was the the very first time a real audience was seeing the film, and so you can see your movie post like 100 or 200 or 300 times. The very first time that you see it for real and the movie's born is really the first time it's screened in front of an audience who's there just to watch the film, not to judge an edit or a mix or, you know, and that was, as Demi said, like, it was, I think, to me, one of the most important moments of my life, because, yeah, we really didn't know how the audience was gonna go. It was the first amazing news, like, to be selected in Cannes, when I got the news that Thierry Frémaux was putting us into main competition. That was my biggest dream for the film. But Cannes can be very violent.
Very tough. It's not like just because it's a French director that we were going to get a free ride.
Right. It can be really like this or the gladiator of the, you know, the circus. So I think we are all very stressed during the screening. But I think that was part of what made it such a special experience, because little by little we felt that the room was reacting. And to me, I remember, like, I was feeling people reacting more and more, and at the end, when I saw people applauding, the blood falling on the pavement, I was like, oh my God, okay, we made it. We did it. We did it. It's like, it was fantastic. And I remember, Demi, you were sitting next to me for that train scene that you were discovering with the sound for the first time, and she whispered me, like, you killed me with those streets.
No more shrimp on the catering menu. But, you know, the film has become such a cultural phenomenon this fall, especially. You know, it's been a huge success. People have been seeing it. I saw someone this weekend who's seen it 15 times in the theater. But Halloween costumes and drag shows and memes and all this great sort of interaction, which that's what you want for people to take your art and run with it. I'm wondering if just both of you can speak a little bit to the cultural phenomenon, the reaction to the film that it's been this fall.
I mean, there's no way you could have anticipated that. It's just been really an incredible joy.
Yeah.
I mean, I get sent something every day of some meme, some, as I mentioned before it came out, another drag show performance, which kind of feels like we've made it.
Yeah.
And, you know, the amount of costumes. But the beauty of that is it's about a shared experience. Seeing all of you here tonight, when you could get a link, it's the idea that there is something that I am part of that is bringing people to the theater, that we're having a shared experience, and that shared experience is extending out into other aspects of people's lives.
Yeah.
And the byproduct of that is the message of loving ourselves, having a little bit more self-acceptance, is making its way into the zeitgeist and hopefully a cultural shift. And that impact is a greater gift than I think that we could have ever truly imagined.
And learning to love yourself when you aren't even a monster of the zoo. I think that's
Especially, because really that idea is it's loving all parts of ourselves and embracing that idea that there is no better you than you.
Any words on the impact, the cultural sort of phenomenon as a substance?
Yeah, to me, it's been really incredible to feel, yes, that the movie had reached the audience in the very, guts, I think, of the audience, which is the more simple reaction of, having all those memes, all those costumes. I had a friend of mine who was living in New York, and he said, I dressed myself as Elizabeth for Halloween. There were 7 Elizabeth Sparkles in the party. And I think, to me, that's what cinema is about. It's about the power of getting an experience, and then that it's part of your life, and that it's going to be shared, it's going to be digested, and hopefully it's going to last. think the theme of the movie is also, you know, it's they're gonna love you, and I think when we create something, whether it is by acting or directing, we just want that the part of us is loved and stay in the world for even after us. And I think seeing that the substance had, yes, gone into people's house and people's parties and people and with dogs, like dogs taking the substance.
We can't allow dogs to get the substance.
There was an excellent video done of two dogs in
Yeah.
Spanish doing the substance. Yes. Okay.
And also, like I must say that I received so many messages that to me are so important. First of many girls from any age, from young girls to our age girls telling me this movie made me so much good. Like, you know, I felt heard, I felt seen. I feel that now I can have more tenderness for myself, or people telling me I'm so happy I got to see it, I'm gonna feel better. And other message from young women filmmakers that telling me this is so great to see that this kind of movies can exist. It gives me some strength, you know, to me also be a director and create my own things. And I think, yes, the representations, what we put in the world is so important to feel that you're capable of doing your own things. And I think that also what the movie is about, like what you're fed, what you see and watch your whole life influence what you think you're going to be capable of and what you think you're going to be capable of doing. So to me that was something that I also strongly reacted in a very grateful way to receive all this.
Well, thank you so much for both being here tonight, talking about the film with us. Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you so much.